House passes Anti-Semitism Bill with broad bipartisan support amid campus arrests. The Anti-Semitism Awareness Act would require the Education Department to adopt the definition of anti-Semitism used by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. Oh boy, wow. It passed with 320 to 91. 21 Republicans and 70 Democrats voted against the legislation. I'm actually surprised.
Me too.
To see as many Democrats vote against it. I'm not surprised by the Republicans, but the Democratic Party is pushing very heavily away from Israel. So I guess it's not really that surprising. They say the bill, titled the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, would mandate that the Education Department...
That's how crazy things are. Tim is surprised. The bill passed with easy. There's nothing scarier than the term broad bipartisan support. And that's what this, anything that you hear from DC that has broad bipartisan support is a scary thought. It's something not to, it's usually not something to support. Tim's surprised that it got 91 no votes from some Democrats. That's how crazy things are now.
Adopt the broad definition of anti-Semitism used by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, an intergovernmental group to enforce anti-discrimination laws.
That group, this International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, is a group of over 30 countries. So we have allowed in this bill, there is now a definition of anti-Sem. The anti-Sem is not in the bill. It refers to the definition made by this group of 30 plus countries, meaning it can change at any moment. If you're tying it into that definition, they could add Christ is King or whatever they want to add in there. Maybe it's already in there. I didn't look at the whole definition there. I saw some examples. We have tied in now legislation. Let's kind of narrow this down, though. This legislation is for Title VI. And what Title VI does is designate federal funds. So it's not to, put you in handcuffs over it. It might trend that way. I think they would want to do that. But this bill is only, if you do not get money from the federal government for anything, this bill doesn't apply to you. If you do get money, it's mostly education institutions like colleges, but it's not narrow to that. If you get federal funds, then this bill could apply to you.
The international group defines anti-Semitism as a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. I mean, that's actually very vague. The group adds that rhetorical and physical...
I know, but Tim, you used the term, and I've used the term racist before, so I'm not immune to this. I'm criticizing myself. I try not to use it. I use the term Zionist. It's the same thing. It's vague. How you can't put the word Zion, and I would never want to, but I'm just comparing it. You can't put the word Zionist into a bill. It's a feeling. You can't put the word woke into a bill. I define woke as allowing an authority outside of God to define your morality. That means woke is something different to every single person. A Zionist is different to every single person. Anti-Sem is different. Racism is different to every single person. If I'm walking down the street and I see a person of whatever identity and I cross the street, am I a racist? That is just completely arbitrary. But that's what's already in our legislation. I'm going to get to that here in a second.
Manifestations of anti-Semitism include such things as calling for the killing or harming of Jews or holding Jews collectively responsible for actions taken by the state of Israel. I mean, some of these things are fair, right? The problem is, we have the bill pulled up. I'll throw it to Thomas Massey.
What is fair? None of it's fair. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. I don't know what Tim's talking about there.
He says today the House will vote on a bill to define anti-Semitism with the intent to increase prosecutions of activity on campuses. The bill is...
The definition of anti-Semitism is whoever has the power to define it. That's why they changed the definition of vaccine. They had the power to change it. It shouldn't have been changed. I didn't agree to change it. How did we get to a new definition? My child's textbooks we got a children's book with a definition of the vaccine that's completely different than it is now. It's not a justifiable definition at all.
as a problem beyond violating the First Amendment, the definition of anti-Semitism appears nowhere in the bill. To find the legally adopted definition of anti-Semitism, one must go to the website below. Not only is the definition listed here, but one also finds specific examples of anti-Semitic speech. Are those examples made part of the law itself? Do you agree with all of these examples of anti-Semitism? Should people in America be prosecuted for saying these things in all contexts? I think not. This is a poorly conceived, unconstitutional bill, and I will vote no. Well,
I'm not a lawyer, but my interpretation of the bill is there's no prosecution over this. It doesn't spill into that. It's just basically, which is very problematic, it spills into, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I'm reaching out to people, help me understand. I read the bill. It's not a long bill, and I analyzed it with AI just to kind of bounce ideas off of it. But help me out. Here's my takeaway from the bill. Enemies of America are now using the abomination that is the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to destroy the whole Constitution. It was funny when we did the video laughing about New York adding the fat, as a protected class. It was funny. Oh, it's funny. That's me too. I'm like, oh, it's funny. And then they added the short as a protected class. Oh, that's funny. What that means is they can add anybody they want to it's whoever has the power to add someone to be a protected class. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 protects based on race. What is the definition of race? None of these things have definitions. None of these things have arbitrary definitions that we can all agree on. Is Steph Curry black? Is he white? Are my kids black? Or are they white? Am I black? My wife is white. Are they black for this bill? What is the definition? Is somebody 10% black, 90% black, 50% black? How black is Obama? Race, color, religion. The bill talks about anti-Sem. What's the definition of hatred? I'm not calling for it. I don't need one. But what's the definition for hatred against Christians? There's no term for it. There's the population of Jewish Americans is less than 3% in our country. And we've got a term to protect them. And not only do we have a term, now we have legislation to protect federal funds going to anyone who's labeled as criticizing them. Religion is already in the Civil Rights Act. Why are we even doing this? National origin and sex, including pregnancy, sexual orientation, gender identity. You see how it just keeps getting wider, and it's the fat, and it's the short, and it never stops. The problem, the backbone for this, I say it's unconstitutional, but we all need to do some soul searching, because if you think the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is constitutional, then you think that if you want to be consistent, you also think this is constitutional.
Middle MAGA.